Okay, this decides this, and I guess it's just going to be a just me talking video on a couple of stuff. First of all, I'm going to put up the best non-existent console, and that's pretty much been vaporware, but everyone has been talking about it since 2005, and actually even brought up pretend specs on it, saying that it was so much better than the PS3 and the Xbox 360. And that reward goes to the Apple gaming console, which pretty much has been vaporware. And of course, the Apple TV, which a lot of people have been, get this, saying it's better than the Xbox 360 and PS3. Yep, yep. hmm They even went as far as saying that OnLive was going to be the future of the Apple TV and how it's going to take over the gaming industry. Yeah, how many times I've heard the gaming console, Apple's gaming console is going to take over the gaming industry. Oh man, for a piece of vaporware, this thing took the cake. I mean, there's even still people defending that damn thing. It's vaporware. It doesn't exist. And it's mainly because iOS and then that whole stupid mirroring effect thing, which unfortunately has fallen down into oblivion right now because, Apple finally closed the door on the Apple television, which is in itself a joke. It just, there's nothing there. And of course, starting from 2005, you can put in Google's search Apple gaming console, and then starting from 2005 on up to today, you'll find that there has been rumors galore on the damn gaming console, and even some people saying it's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. Yeah, the in order for that to happen, it actually needs to exist. But Apple, you win for having the first console to go up against the PS3 and 360 and even the Nintendo Wii and not even exist at all. And don't even bring up Apple TV. That wasn't even a console. Even though for some bizarre reason some people actually call it it. Go ask Saint Little Tech Geek about that. Oh, and just to let you know, there are actually some analysts that are predicting an Apple gaming console by 2013. And maybe to 14 and 15, 16, and yeah, just like the same analyst who also predicted the Apple television set. Ain't gonna happen. Greatest vaporware console ever designed and never existed. Then you got Steambox, which I think was confirmed for next year. And this does go in kind of line with a lot of stuff that's been going on, especially with the possible opening of the next Xbox 720 by next year, which is believable. We you going with Microsoft's way of thinking because they do have a pretty big ego, and even if a company failed but did show up, Microsoft, they tend to push out consoles early or push out certain products early. Who gives a fuck? They got showed up and they don't like it. I mean, who cares if the company failed and is bankrupt or whatever? They just don't like being showed up at all. So I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up by the end of next year we saw fucking Microsoft show out their new gaming console and then the next month just push it out right there and not even wait until next year. They're just gonna pull it out because that's what Microsoft does. I mean, that's what they did with the Xbox 360 and the original Xbox. I mean, as soon as they showed it, well, the next following month and year, I mean, then by the first of the next year, they ended up pushing it out. But when they really want to push it out, they won't even wait a couple of year. They won't even wait a couple of months. They'll just push it out next month because they really like to push their technology out fast. I mean, who cares if it fails? They just got to get it out there. And as far as Steambox is concerned, I've been watching a couple of people's other videos on this. Single Tech Geek's video says it's not going to be a threat to consoles. Well, I've heard that before. Just to let you all know, the original Atari 2600, They were the people who owned the company at the time, Warner Brothers, was at to fight at the guy who created it. Blueberg, I think it was his name. I can't remember. You'll correct me later. But they were in a fight on the lifespan of the Atari 2600, and he wanted to wait until 1984, and they wanted to release it in 1983 or maybe 82 because the console was getting pretty old. And of course, you had the great game crash in 1983, which really made Warner Brothers sweat, especially with the collapse of the ET game, which did not bode well for Atari. And of course, the Atari 2600 came out in 1977, and it literally was an entire decade. But the creator of the Atari system finally got what he wanted, and it was pulled back until like 1984. But then, 1980, but 1983 was the great video game crash, and of course, Nintendo came out with their new console, which Nintendo was a privately unknown console business. I mean, they had one more called the TV game in Japan, but as far as being known here in the U.S., nobody knew who they were. They were just relatively unknown. And by the time they came out, Atari was pretty much done at it with the Sega Master System, which, made more damage. And then the Atari finally released their 5200, and it was a complete disaster. In fact, it's one of the biggest disasters in console history. Not backwards compatible, and of course, the controllers had a 95% failure rate. Bad. But as far as the Steam box is concerned, I kind of agree with a couple of people in some areas and kind of not in others. First of all, as far as it saying putting the PC to the in the living room, I kind of find that bullshit because Microsoft did that with their original Xbox and it didn't exactly do so well. Fast forward to today, they're just another gaming console now. No different than all the other gaming consoles. But that was their original advertisement before releasing the original Xbox, was that they were going to finally have the PC in the living room. Secondly, I don't think Steam's going to be able to port all their games to the console if it's running Linux, because I don't think games like the whole Mass Effect trilogy and the Batman, Arkham City, and Arkham Asylum are going to, their PC versions are going to immediately run on the console. That's kind of way far fetched. Mainly because they're using a Linux model, and I know what Samuel Technique said, that the whole Linux model is a failure in itself. And might as well just take that PlayStation 3 and chuck that in the garbage since it's a Linux model. And I'm not talking about the people who installed Linux onto it. I mean, the system is basically a Linux model with OpenGL ports. And the reason why they go with it is because now that Microsoft has its own gaming console, and some people still don't buy this, but it's pretty much true. Microsoft has complete control over DirectX, so other gaming consoles can't use it, even though some people are like, but they can! It was done in the Sega Saturn! I mean, it was done in the Sega Dreamcast! Well, the Dreamcast came out before the original Xbox did. Afterwards, go find a console that that had DirectX in it after the Dreamcast. You'll find none. So if anything, it's going to be another gaming console. Is just, or I mean, if they end up making it just to a small PC to hook up to your television set, just like Big Picture. I mean, Big Picture has a nice interface and all, but what's the point? I mean, Macs and PCs can hook up to TV sets now and use a controller. I mean, putting the PC on your entertainment center, and when you can already do that, what's the fucking point? Macs and PC's been able to do that for years now. And if they go the console route, what are they going to do? Are they going to go the streaming route, the digital distribution route, or both of the digital distribution and the physical copy? They can go to digital distribution. All they need is a really good hard drive and put an OS on a flash. That could possibly work with no, digital, without no physical media, and just sell games cheap on a value, and it would work. The model would actually be good. Of course, they need a good amount of hard drive space. Of course, the best result is just to have a flash drive and then have no hard drive but have a hard drive slot, and that way you could just put any hard drive you want, just like the PlayStation 3. Of course, with the PlayStation 3, you got to take out the old hard drive, which is kind of stupid, but oh well. And then, of course, the Nintendo Wii, which you could just hook up any USB hard drive and you're pretty much good to go. And also, and if they do have a good console, they gotta at least market it well. And they do have a pretty good marketing system with the hardcore fans as well as the hardcore gamers, so they got that part pretty much patted down. Of course, and transferring your account from PC to the Steam box, depending on how they go with that. But if they're going to go with the Linux, they're not going to be able to transfer all your games. You're just going to have a bunch of shit on there that says, oh, you played these games before. Well, here's a whole new set of games to play. Sorry. And they're not going to go the streaming route because, let's face it, OnLive is a massive failure. And I mean a massive fucking failure. The original OnLive went completely bankrupt. They're now just owned by some independent company, and pretty much everybody's just waiting for that clock of doom to hit OnLive when they'll get totally shut down. And if they're going to just release a box with Windows on it, that's been done before too. I believe it was released by Radio Shack or Tom Electronics, which was bought out by Radio Shack, and it didn't exactly work too well. And of course, they need a good machine. And if they go with the console, they're just going to need to get a good console that will at least last 5 years with good hardware or decent hardware. And if you don't like the fact that your console is going to be outdated by 2 years, shut the fuck up and just get back on your PC and start complaining there, because that's the way it goes in the real world. Because the reason why we sell these consoles is to people who don't want to go through the upgrading headache or any of that kind of shit. They just want to hook it up to their TV and play. They don't give a flying fuck about everything else. But that's the way I see it. See ya.